So Baruch Hashem, it's a pleasure to see you all again, as we've been doing for many, many years now. And the sugya, last week we discussed the mitzvah upon the Zar, who was not a Kayan. Does he take part in the mitzvah of Nasi's Kefim? And today we spoke about the Isser of Azar to be Oler Duchen and Nasi's Kefim. So this is really a fascinating sugya, and we will try to move forward more or less based on the Mala Mekoimis on our sheet. So this sugya begins in Ksubis Daf Chav Daled Amud.
Second one, Pesach, the second batch. The second batch. Let's go to the second batch.
What we see on the screen is what we...
Here we go.
So the Gemara deals with the question, how do we verify kahuna? How does a person prove I am a Kayan? If we have Adam that testify, this person davens in our shul and is Oler Duchen every day, would that be enough to verify his kahuna and have him marry into a mishpocha miucheses? Tiboy lamando mamala metur meliachsen, v'tiboy lamando mel ein mana metur meliachsen. So in the previous sugya, we find the machlokes. If Adam testify, this person eats teruma in his home. Would that be enough to establish his status as a kohen? If a zar eats teruma, that's misa b'dei shemayim. Nasi's Kefim the isur asay lo oidilmo lo ishno isur asay. So the Gemara clearly seems to indicate zar she'oler duchen, unlike zar she'ochel teruma that's chayav misa, is over and a mitzvah asay. But the Gemara doesn't explain which mitzvahs asay do we mean. Rashi on the spot, isur asay. In my sefer, I quoted various Mala Mekoimis, but this Rashi is somewhat problematic because we cannot take every mitzvah say and turn it into a lav abo machlal asay. When the Gemara says lav abo machlal asay, I'll give you an example. Psulei hamugdosh, a korban that developed a mum, a blemish, and it's pasal la'akrov. We're paida. You pay money for hegdish, and the behem is yoytze l'churid. But the Gemara says, tizbach v'lo giza. The Torah says, tizbach v'ochalto. It's not a mitzvah to say to eat psulei hamigdoshim. Psul hamigdoshim shenivdu are just like any other animal. It's a behemoth chulin. So why does the Torah say tizbach? Tizbach velo giza. You cannot share that animal for its wool because that is bezoin kachin. So that's a lava bo machlala say, because tizbach is not a mitzvah to say. So why does the Torah write tizbach as if it's a mitzvah? Torah wants to teach us tizbach velo giza, but koisavoch is a mitzvah to say. And mitzvah to say is not a lava bo machlala say. The reason the Torah writes koisavoch is koyanim have a mitzvah. But how do we know that a zar would have an avera? And mitzvah to say is not a lava bo machlala say. And that's a Gemara Zvochem Lamedalet. However, there is one sugya in Shas which would be supportive of Rashi's interpretation, and that is the Makis Utlesamet base. Omar Rav Gidl Omar Rav, Kohen Shochar Machatas V'Yoshem Lefnei Zrika Loike Mai Tama Diyom Akrova Ochlo Oisam Asher Kuba Behem Lacha Kapora Ein Lefnei Kapora Lo Lava Bo Machlala Say Lavu Param Psochim Daf Nun Tes. The Gemara says Achiles Kochim is a mitzvah to say. And the Gemara quotes this very same pasuk, "Va'ochlu Oisam Asher Kupa Behem." So this pasuk is a mitzvah to say, and still the Gemara says it's a lava bo machlala say. So that would be somewhat supportive of Rashi, but we still need an explanation. How could a mitzvah say also be a ba'alav abo machlal say? But we put that aside for now. You know, every shiur we give, there are 1,000 outlets. We could talk about so many different things, but we need to be focused. So maybe, who knows, someday I'll give a shiur about the very concept, lav abo machlal asay, and we will broaden this discussion. Right now, we put it on the shelf. We come back to the sugya of zar she'oler leduchan. Shabbos kuf yudches. Omer Rabbi Yossi, miyomer avarti al divrei chavera, yedeni mi'atzmi she'eni kohen. Em omrim li chaverai leduchan, ani oilo. So whenever I speak about the great disciples of Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Seinu Shebedorim, the 5 giants of Shisha Sidra Mishnah, after 24,000 Talmidim perished, Shaloi Nagu Kovet Zeh B'Zeh, and Rabbi Akiva found miraculously the strength to start anew. And he taught the 5 greatest Tanuim. Let me just make a statement. It's a guess, but it's an intelligent guess. I think 90% of the Mishnah is the 5 great Talmidim Rabbi Seinu Shebedorim. Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi, Rabbi Meir bar Anes, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta, Rabbi Elazar ben Shavuos, Stam Rabbi Elazar in the Mishnah is Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon. 90% of our Mishnayos are the third of these 5 giants. And in my Sefer, I pointed out a remarkable phenomenon. These 5 Tanuim were paragons. Each of them was a paragon of Kavod Chaveira. So once again, I don't want to go in another direction, but I can't ignore Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta was one of the great 5 of the big 5. What an amazing statement. Miyom Eloi ovarti al divrei chaverai. Yodeni b'atzmi she'eni kohen. Em oilem li alei leduchan ani oilem. Do you know any people that could say, Miyom Eloi ovarti al divrei chaverai? I don't know anyone like that. So anyway, so Rabbi Yossi says, Im oilem li chaverai leduchan eisi oilem. Taisus. Lo yodari. מה איסור יש בזר או אוהל לדוכן? אם לא משום ברוך על ותול, שלכהנא ממלא תורה לברך הססון. So that he says, they're on the spot. What issur is there? And this thesis is a bit strange. Obviously, there is no issur. If it would be an issur, would the Rabbi Yossi be over in Aveira because his friends told him to do so? So obviously, what troubles thesis is the Gemara in Ksubas Daf Chof Dalet. And Rabbi Yossi says, I would be able to do it. So probably there is no issur. So what about the Gemara in Ksubas Chof Dalet? The Gemara says issur nasei. So how do we understand? If there is an issur, would the Rabbi Yossi be over an Aveira? Let's skip the Mogen Avraham for a moment and go over to the Ramah, and then we'll come back to the Mogen Avraham. We skip the long right of Yehuda just for a moment, and we go over to the Ramah. So the Ramah is in Kuf Chav Ches, starting off in Darkei Moshe, and then in the Ramah. Kazvu b'toises perek kol kisvei. Lo yodari. מה איסור יש בזה לדוכן, אם לא משום ברוך על ותול. שלכהנא ממלא תורה לברך הססון. מצוסי כוסף על זה. מצוסי כוסף. And soon I'll show you where that is written. And it's interesting that the Ramah doesn't want to quote a source. מצוסי כוסף על זה. ולפי זה יוכל איסור לארץ הם כהנא והם יברכו. ולא יעמד אז מלך. What is he talking about? What is he talking about? Ramah, Kuf Chav Ches Sif Aleph. Ein lezor lisakapo, afilu im koyanim acherim. Ve'efshar, the im koyanim acherim shori. It's orachim. So that more indicates maybe there would be a difference. If there are other Kahanim, then a Zar doesn't have a problem. Get up there, stand together with the Kahanim, be one of them. That's not an Aveda. But if he is the only Kohen, that's an Aveda. Why would there be a difference? Last week, we learned the Haflo, totally opposite. The Haflo says, what is the Aveda of a Zar So'el Aduchen? You're supposed to stand down there, and your mitzvah is to receive the brachas. If you go up on the Duchen, you're losing your mitzvah, because you need to stand ponim keneged ponim. So according to the Haflo, he argues, if there's no kohen in Shiur, you might as well get up there. Say whatever you want to say. You're not mavatal your mitzvah, but if there are other kahanim, they're supposed to stand up there, and you're supposed to stand down here and have the brachas bestowed upon you, ponim keneged ponim. But then he says the other way around, im kohenim acherim shori. What is the logic? We go back to the Dark of Moshe. Matzosi kosuf. The Fiza yochal yisrael alasem kahanim vehem yevochu. Berav hamad es melech. Ma tov. Why not? Berav hamad es melech. Isn't this strange? Berav hamad es melech. Fake. That's a fake Berav hamad es melech. A Yisrael Azar pretending to be a kohen, standing up there, and that would be Berav hamad es melech. Achen lo nadu. Ve'ulai efshel below kahanim ya'alu. But the Gemara says it's an Isra say. Ve'al divri ha'toises kosheli. Tu isa behedi b'ksubis da perik sheni. The zar ha'noises kapav oive b'asei. Ve'efshel deri lo komer ele kishoyrem kohenem acherem aval avad oive b'asei. That's all of you. So the Ramo, to be miyashev toises from the Gemara says, like Matzosi Kosov, if there are other Kahanim, you could go up. You don't have an Aveda. But if you're the only one, then you have an Aveda. We go fast forward, and then we'll definitely come back. But I just want to speed ahead. You know, I think from now on, we will have numbers on the sources. It'll make it easier. Page 7, Sidur Reb Heretz Schatz. Sidur Reb Heretz Schatz on page 7. Here we are. Can
the Rav give us a second on Sidur Reb Schatz and the early Sidurim?
That's going to be, first we need to see what he says, and then I will go into some biography. Sidur Reb Heretz Schatz, B'Mesechet Shabbos Kuf Yud Tes Omer Beis. It's actually Kuf Yud Ches Omer Beis, but it goes up. Yodani Bas Mishaeni Kohen, B'Mamru Lechaver E'ere Leduchan Ani Yoel. Ad Kan Lashon HaTosis. Lo Yodari. Ad Kan Lashon HaGemara. Tosis. Lo Yodari. Ma Yisrael Yesh V'Zaro Leduchan. Im Lo Mishum Brocha Levatol Shel Kahanim Lo Mitoyer. Ulefi Zeh Yochel Yisrael Alasem Kahanim Vehem Yevochu Lerov Hamad Es Melech. Ochen Lo Inagu Ubeulai. That's the exact lesson that the Ramo is quoting. So let's go back to page 1, page 3 actually. Sidur Reb Heretz Schatz is a Sidur al pi Kabbalas Ha'ari. We don't know much. Who was this Reb Heretz Schatz? He was from Tribish. And Tribish is Italy. Obviously, he was one of the Makaborim in Italy. The Siddur was printed first time, Reish Samach Hey. And that is 420 years ago. The Ramo was born 25 years later, Reish Sadik. So he was almost a contemporary of the Ramo. The Ramo lived in Krakow and Poland. And obviously, he saw the Siddur of Reb Naftali Heretz Schatz that was printed in Italy. it's al pi Kabbalah. Obviously, the Ramo didn't feel comfortable quoting him by his name. Maybe he didn't know about him, enough about him. Maybe he questioned the reliability. So he writes, Matzosi Kosov. He doesn't go against the Siddur, because the Siddur also, concludes with somewhat of a tzorachiyim. It is not definitive. He writes, Efshar, Efize, so it is clear that the Ramo is quoting the Siddur, the Be'er Shatz. The Ramo, on his own, in the Hagos of the Shulchan Aruch, Efshar im kahana macherim shori. Alone, definitely not. Maybe together with kahana macherim. And this is in...
The Rav is saying that the Rama is basing this on the Siddur of Hatali Hertz, even though he doesn't quote him by name. Does he do so other places?
I think so. I don't think it's a Gavaldig Chiddush. The Beis Yosef definitely does it sometimes, but it is somewhat of a Chiddush. But there's no other source. There's no other source, and he quotes the exact same Lashon, which would seem to indicate clearly that he's quoting a Be'er Shatz. The Be'er Shatz was somewhat older than him, because the Siddur was printed exactly 25 years before the Ramo was born. The Ramo was born Tofresh Tzaddik, and the Siddur was printed not Tofresh Tzaddik, but Reish Tzaddik. And the Siddur was printed Reish Samechei. So it is clear that he's quoting this Siddur, and it is somewhat confusing, because the Be'er Shatz writes, if you go up together with other Kahanim, maybe it would be Berav Am Hadaras Melech. And to me, that would be very strange. So I brought various interesting sources. How do we define Berav Am Hadaras Melech? But let's first of all analyze the sources on the spot. Hagos Chasam Soifer. I think we should go back to the Magen Avraham at this stage. Let's go back to the Magen Avraham. Here we are. Lo Yodari, Perush, Dom Reb Yossi, Miyom Aravarti, Ein Shem B'Toises V'Kosher, B'Ksubas Aminim the Zara Neis Kappa V'Yisabese, Tiris V'Dak HaMoshe, the B'Ksubas Mayra B'Fnei Atzmoy, U'B'Shabes Mayra Kana Macherim, V'Tzorachim Min Nolan Leri Chiluk Zeh. I mean, when Reb Yossi says, Em Omru Lechaveirei, he doesn't specify. He doesn't say, if there are other Kohanim. Ve'efshe desvila leri, the Isra say, Hainu Masha Maske Shem Shemayim Levatola, Bevrocha, Ein Semerish Tazvav. That's a Gemara and Tamura, that Moitze Shem Shemayim Levatola is over on the Mrs. say, Eisa Shem Lakecho Tiro. So maybe that is exactly what the Gemara and Ksavas means. Isra say, which is to say, Brocha Levatola. And that's a very reasonable teretz. Belulei divrari, hayinu omrim, the Reb Yossi lo yikoma rak shoya oile leduchen, afal pi shoya lo ginai bedover, be'emes lo yam avorech. So maybe Reb Yossi lo yoya mavorach. The Imre Emes, the Ger Rebbe, has an amusing pshat. I don't know how to define it. Cute. Maybe that would be the way to define it. Cute. He says, Em oimri chaveirai alei ledichan o yisi oila. And then Reb Yossi says another statement. Meyomai lo yomarti dovar v'chazarti la'achoirai. So Rashi explains, I never said something that I had to look behind my back. Was hearing, which means I never spoke Lashon Hara. I never said a word which necessitated me to look around. Is Yankel here? Is Jack here? Is Reuven listening to what I'm saying? So the Imre Emes says a Gishmak Pshat, but it's just a battle. Rabbi Yossi says, if my friends would tell me, but it's a bracha levatola, it's an aveira. So he says, I I was just standing there like a klutz. I never said anything. I just turned around like all the other Kahanim did. I went through the motions, but I was silent. And therefore, I had no Aveira. So, it's a cute shot. Nice shot. But obviously, Rabbi Yossi, like Rashi explains, is saying two different things. Two different things. One is Miyomai lo amarti devar Aveira, and Miyomai lo amarti davar v'chazarti lachorai. But the Imam says a cute shot, and he says, no. Statement number two is the explanation of statement number one. If you will wonder, how was it over the Gemong Sulis? How did I say Bracha Lavatola? No, I never said anything. I just get up there. Chazarti lachorai. I just turned around like all the Gehanim do, but I said nothing, and therefore I wasn't over Aveira. However, the Magen Avraham says, Lo hoya mavorech. And that would explain the difference. Are there other Kahanim or are there not other Kahanim? Because if you're the only one getting up there, of course you would say a bracha. Otherwise, they would kick you out of shul. They would start screaming, bracha, bracha. But if you get together with 10 other Kahanim, nobody will realize that you're not saying the bracha. So that would be a different interpretation. Why, together with other Kahanim, it's okay. And we don't need to say, Barov Ham Hadras Melech. Now we are fascinating in Yehuda. It's a bit lengthy, so I'm not going to go through it. Just the first few lines. Nechleku shnei loimdim. Beperush divra Magen Avraham bereish simen kuf chof ches. B'ma shekosa v'siv kudnalav. Efshe desvila rid isar asay hainu. Ma shemaskir es Hashem levatola. אם כוונת המגן אברהם על הברוכה שלפני נשיאת כפיים, דהיינו, מה שקדשון מצוי שצריך לברוכה שם אישור ביערו, או כוונות על ברכס כהנים גופי, שמזכיר שם שמיים בברוכה של מברוכה ישראל, היינו יברכו שם, יורה שם, יסור השם. And the Noidi Yehuda goes into a lengthy discussion. He does not decide which of the two is right. But it definitely gives legitimacy to both understandings. Mara ponim lakan ulachan. Comes along the Merkevis Mishnah. The Merkevis Mishnah was slightly younger than the Noidi Yehuda, and he is taken aback. Masha kosav Noidi Yehuda b'shalava lebiur Magen Avraham semekuf chavches. פשוט, דאיסר עשי שמס כשם שמיים לבטול הכל הברוכה שלפני נשיאת כפיים. היכוימה וציוונה לבורך ולא נצטעבו. מה שאין כנשיאת כפיים עצמוי, ועדי אין בה משום שם שמיים לבטול. עין טור שולחן אורך ולחיים סמרי שבב. רביני יוני בשם רבי בשם הגוין. מה שאמרו בירושלמי בתור מסנפיים לבורך שם כבוד מוחוס עליון לבורך. If a person said, and then the vegetable falls to the ground into the mud, and he cannot eat it, then it's a bracha levator. He needs to say, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Le'avod. Hainu acha she'is kemalchus, avalem hitchel avad Baruch Ato Hashem, yisayim lamdeni chikacho. V'avalei koyle posek, v'em ken hu adin psuka berchas kahanim, ein behem mishum shem shamayim levatola. What type of a bracha levatula could it be? Just saying psukim. We say the same psukim every day in the morning after berachas haTorah. Koyle b'Torah. How could this be a bracha levatula?
Yeah, everybody said.
So I want to make an interesting comment, which is just, I like to give some background when I teach Torah. Where is this case of Merkevis Mishnah? You see where it is? Achalas Asurais Perek Yudalet. How do you come from Perek Yudalet and Achalas Asurais, which deals with Shalok and Derech Achila, to Nesias Kapayim? This is just so fascinating. The Merkevis Mishnah is in the middle of learning Rambam. It's a sefer on the Rambam, Merkevis Mishnah, on the Mishnah Torah. And he's in the middle of writing Perek Yudal Machonas Asuris, and he says, I just got a new sefer, a gewaltige sefer, Noidi Yehuda. And he starts writing the orders and the Noida Yehuda without any kesher to Macharas Asuris.
Really? He wrote the Ha'ara into the Machalas.
What?
He wrote the Ha'ara Nayvud into the Machalas Asuris.
Yes, because he just now got the safe and he was so excited and he starts writing the orders on many tshuvas.
Mayurdik.
So, Gedolim Svorim of yore aren't systematic. This would never happen in our day. In our day, everything is scientific, everything is systematic. But sometimes in these well-developed, structured Svorim, there's not much content. The Merkevis Mishnah, every line is every line is fascinating, but it totally lacks structure and system. So the Merkevis Mishnah is a middle of Machalas Asuris, and he just got a new sefer, and he starts writing the orders on the sefer, and then they view them. Anyway, I wrote an Arichas Gedoyla to explain the Noida Yehuda, and I brought many rayas. Our connection, Yeratzon, should go on for many years because we touch upon so many subjects, and many times they say we should dedicate a shiur to this Indian as well, maybe sometime down the line. And I say, when you say the psukim of Berchus Kalam Kekoyre B'Torah, of course it's not an Aveda. We say these psukim every day, just like Lamdeni Chukecha. But when a Zar is Oile Leduchem, and he pretends to be a Kohen, and he pretends that he has the power to bestow Berchus Hashem al Yisrael, that's a Brocha Levatol. And a Brocha Levatol is Lav Dafka, Borech Atu Hashem Elokeinu Melech U'Olam, like the Matbeya Shetovach HaChomim V'Brochas, whether it's Berchus HaMitzvah or Berchus HaNanen. When you moitzi Shem Shemayim, and it's a Brocha that is void, that is invalid, that's a Brocha Levatol. So you could say 1,000 times a day the psukim of Berchus Kahanim. We say them every day in the morning after Berchus Torah. But if you say them l'shem Berchus Koyanim, and you're not a Koyan, you're not qualified, and what you say is empty because you don't have the koyach. That is a brocha levatol, and that's the Noida Yehuda. Lo kedivra Merkevis Mishnah, and I think it's a starkest forum, and maybe some other gelegenheit, some other opportunities. I will bring additional sources to this concept. So yes, Lamdeni Chikech was a posuk in Tehillim, Yivarech Hashem Yivarecha, Yishmech was a posuk in Parshas Nosoi. But you're not just calling a posuk Kekoyre B'Torah. You're pretending you're a kohen, and you're standing on the duchen, and you're pretending and you have no right to do that. That would be considered a brocha levatol. So let's get back to Naftali Hertz Mitribish and the Ramah in Darke Moshe. Would this be considered Berav Am Hadras Melech?
Rabbi, I found the Rav Naftali Hertz online, but it's from 1516. It's the old print.
This is the second print. Looks like it's the second print because it says Shin Chaf. And the Rav said the first print is Reish Samachay.
Yeah.
This is the second print.
And this print is 12 years before the Histalkus of the Ramah. That was already during the Ramah's lifetime, Shin Chaf. But obviously that's the second print. The first print was Reish Samachay. Where was this printed? So we don't know, maybe you could find sources on the internet. I don't know much about the Naftali Hertz. The only thing he's known for is the Siddur. And I actually saw it before Berchus Kohanim. If you look before Berchus Kohanim in this Siddur, so this is another sefer. I wasn't aware he has other svarim. Perush Rashi al HaTorah. So I actually saw in the Siddur before Birchas Kohanim, there's a short paragraph, and he writes together with other Kohanim. It might even be a mitzvah, but of Madras Melech. So,
okay, Pesach, we see it. If there's a Hagdama, we'll go look at it, Bli Neder, later. So the Rav is going to explain to us what kind of mitzvah of Madras Melech there possibly can be.
Yeah, so we are at the some Sefer. We are at the some Sefer. So here, Faromed Alem Ashar Melech. ובתשובס חסם ספר הלכתי בזה, ואיקנר לי, דמאיים בדרך כמו שיום הנדוב על השטורי בלוישים, דורכים ופיק בגבוהו, תסביר אליי, דאי קבלה ברכי, כהן המוילם לדוכן, היסור לו אוהל המון, אבל להיד המצווה, ברוב המדרס מלך, וכל שיש יד המצווה, לקבל תויסף. וזה נראה לי אמס. This is mind-boggling. The Chassam Sofer compares it with the Rambam. If you add on any other mean to the Daled Minim, that's Val Toisef. But if your intention is to beautify the Daled Minim, that's not Val Toisef. That's not Moisef al HaMitzvah. That is Mahaderes HaMitzvah. And the Chassam Sofer compares this to Yisrael Sho'el Leduchan. Now, we're not dealing with Val Toisef. We're dealing with an Isser of Kosev Orchu. We're not dealing with Hidor Mitzvah, we're dealing with Varav Amadras Melech. So for two different reasons, this comparison seems to be Rachoik Ma'oid. When we're dealing with Val Toisef, it is very logical. Val Toisef is only adding on to a mitzvah. But when you're beautifying the mitzvah and you're Makayim Zakeli Vanveyu, that is not an addition. You're not, what you're doing is you're mahada, the four meaning. You're not adding on number 5. What does that have to do with Birchas Kohanim? If this is an aveir of Kosev Orchu, Koyan Veloi Zar, even if there would be Barav Hamadas Melech, how does that take away an aveira? And the bigger problem is, what type of Barav Hamadas Melech is this? It's fake. So Minchas Osha Klolei HaMitzvahs. I'm just getting up for a moment to fetch the Sefer. Unbelievable, I don't have a Sefer right now at home. But I mean, because those Klolei Mitzvahs came out after my Sefer al Torah, and therefore it's not quoted in this siman from which I
didn't hear a series of beeps.
But in Mechazos Klolei Mitzvahs, there's a siman, a lengthy siman about Barav Hamadas Melech. And I explained there are 3 different types of Barav Hamadas Melech. When many people participate in the performance of a mitzvah, and that is the coming source on our sheet, Psachim Samech Dalet. B'Shchitas HaPesach, the Kohanim were standing in line. Instead of one Kohen being Mekabel Adam and walking to the Mizbeach to do the Zrika, many Kohanim were standing one next to another, and they passed the dam from one to another. And why is that? To have many more Kohanim engaged in the mitzvah. And the Gemara says, Berav Am Hadras Melech. Number 2, when one person is Mekayim a mitzvah for the many, and therefore, by Tkiyas Shofar, by Mikra Megillah, we don't want everybody to say the brocha on his own. The one that reads the Megillah says the brocha and it's mitzi everyone. The one that blows the shofar says the brocha and it's mitzi everyone. That is concept number 2 of Barav Hamadas Melech. everybody should do the mitzvah together, not each one on his own, but all of them together. And that is different than the Gemara Psochim. The Gemara Psochim is one Maisa having many Kohanim engaged in Halochas Adam. That is one type of Berav Amadas Melech. Type number two is, for instance, the Magen Avraham. After Pishesh Kufanoshim, Mitzvah Koisa B'Tzur Mishum Berav Amadas Melech. And if we go down in Tofesh Peites, it is the same. One is Moitzi all the others, and that is Berav Am Hadaras Melech. Concept number three is an amazing Gemara in Yom Daf Ayin. When the Kohen Gadol in Yom Kippurim reads certain parshas from the Sefer Torah, many people come together. And that is Berav Amadas Melech, performing a mitzvah in the presence of many people. And I brought many sources to each of these three different criteria of Berav Amadas Melech. Many people being Makayim mitzvah together, which means it is preferable one is moitzi the more instead of each of them. Oh, this is amazing. Technology. Okay. Berav Amadas Melech, Siman Yud Beis. Let's slowly scroll down. First of all, let's see the definition of the Chayorim. Kol mitzvah sheyochel asoyse b'chabura, yaseh b'chura v'lo b'yochel. Berav Amadas Melech. But kama hava berav, we skip this. Scroll down. We skip this. This is just numbers. What would we define Berav Am? Down.
There's more Kahanim Kvei Rav. There's more Kahanim. I have to go to the shul that has more Kahanim. Let's frame that question.
You don't have to. But it would be Berav Am to go to a bigger minyan. That would be Berav Am, having more people than Reb Shloimeh. I would really suggest, this is such an interesting sugya. When we're through with Berchas Kohanim and you're looking for topics, this would be a fascinating topic. But right now, let's scroll down. I want to see the chelik which I define the various different types of, just a minute. Hanoga Lamaisa. Okay, in Hanoga Lamaisa, I deal with various minhagim. Why do we daven in little shuls and little minyanim, in splinter minyanim? And why don't we abolish all the little shuls and daven, bring them all together, mitzad Berav Am? So these are questions I deal with in this section. We scroll down, till then. Okay, just a minute. Hayim odef she'echad yoytzi kulam mishumram, v'shekol echad yivorach la'atzmai. U'be'ikar geder halacha zu. Left column, I define different types of Berav Am. Ka'asher rabim mekayim mitzvah biyachad, v'kol oisa mitzvosoi b'shleimus, ein adon yochad oisa mitzvah, rabim oisa mitzvah. That means many people coming together, davening with a big minyan instead of a small minyan. Number two, kisha mitzvah skemes al dei rabim, v'kol echad oisa chelek mimeno, v'alidei kiram biyachad ha-mitzvah miskeyemes. That is the Gemara Psochim. We engage many koyanim. Number three, kasher yochad oisa mitzvah b'mamed rabim, v'rabam einam chelek memena. Elet sofim b'masha b'misha oisa mitzvah. That's the Gemara Numa. That many people converge and come together when the Kohen Gadol reads. So these are three different definitions. V'nevayer shloshim dormeina. Okay, we put this aside. But after this presentation, does it make sense that a zar is oile leduchi? You have no part in this mitzvah. You're not makayim any mitzvah. You're a zar. Just pretending that there are more koyanim, to me that would be a gavaldige chiddush. However, there are more quotes. Reb Naftali Hertz, Schatz. doesn't entirely agree with him, but he quotes him. And the Chassam Sofer compares it to Baal Tosef, which is a gewaldige chiddush. Now, when I connected, I heard you were discussing the Torah Tamima. Yes. Who was the Torah Tamima? Oh, here we are. You see this section? Amazing. Beches Koyanim, Sechel Shabbos Kufiyates, Omer Yivesi, Dani Master Shen Kohen. He quotes the Toises, Lo Yodarim Ma'isa Yesh, Midor, Zaro Endichen, Em Lo Yishim Brochel HaTorah, Shkanama Midor Avarach. לפי זה, יוכל האיסור על הארץ למכאן, והם יבואו אליו ועמד הסמלך מהטועים. אכן לא נהגו, אולי אף בלי כהן הם יעלו. What do you mean, אולי? But how do you deal with Brochel HaTorah? And how do you deal with the Gemara Exodus? Doesn't say. Anyway, so the Torah Tamima was the Baruch Epstein. He was the son of the Aruch HaShulchan. He was a banker. He was a big Talmud Chacham. And he wrote 3 Sforim, Torah Tamima, which is an amazing work. It's a compilation of all the Chazals and the Psukim. Well, goes without saying, he didn't have a computer. He didn't have Google. He didn't have Weiss Chachma. So just writing out of his memory, it's an amazing work. It's a great achievement, but it's very partial. There are hundreds and hundreds of Mamor Chazal, which he does not bring. And he also has some interesting comments besides compiling all the Chazals, the Psukim Torah. His second sefer is Baruch She'omar, which is Vortim ala Torah, Pirushim ala Torah, which is a very nice sefer. It's called Baruch She'omar. His name was Baruch. Third sefer is Makor Baruch, which is a memoir. He writes about Gedolim that he knew, writes about his father, his grandfather, who was in the Einekel of Reb Chaim Avalozhin. And that is a very interesting memoir. A lot of interesting stuff in the sefer Makor Baruch. And Makor Baruch, the name is his name, Baruch. His name was Baruch Epstein. And going back to the source, because the sefer is primarily about his memories of his Ovis, of his grandfather, of previous generation, other Gedolim that he encountered. And he was somewhat of a revolutionary. So he comes up with this pshat, quoting the Agdom of Rabbeinu Yerucham, Yodeni, Basmi She'eni Kedai. But that is not a gersa we find in any of the Rishonim. And to me, it is clear. Rabbeinu Yerucham wrote a paraphrase. And if it we say a paraphrase, I don't know exactly how to pronounce the word in English, but he paraphrases Amam Chazal. Lo yolo ala das that Rabbeinu Yerucham had a different gersa. You know, this is so common. It's It's poetry. So he's quoting Rabbi Yossi, and in the context of his own sefer, and he writes, "I'm not kedai to write such a sefer piskei halacha. Who am I?" But nevertheless, this is what I have to share. Rabbeinu Yerucham was a Talmud of the Rosh, one of the greatest gedolim of his age. So I don't think this is serious. I think this is, I would almost say it's a joke. I don't think this is another guess at all. And I think that Tamima took this far too seriously. So I suggested that next week we will deal with a fundamental, mysterious question: why don't we do in Chutz La'aretz? And I think it'll be a very interesting shiur. We will share Malamakoimis, and if you find some interesting Malamakoimis, share them with me. This will be the topic of next week, I would suggest. And moving forward,
and then we will, as the Rav said, we'll come back to Rav Hamadus Melech. That
great,
we have to,
great. I think
Lamaisa, we don't have a clear biur in this Ramah and in this Darkei Moshe. Lamaisa.
Lamaisa, it is it is a tzorech iyun. It is a tzorech iyun, but I think, maybe next week's shiur will shed some light on the Darkei Moshe.
Okay.
And I think, let me just briefly share, because we don't want to say goodbye and leaving such a Tema Gedola. So I just explained a few moments ago the Noida Yehuda and rejecting the Kasha of the Mekeves HaMishnah. You could say Psuki Torah, but you cannot pretend that you have the authority to bestow Berachas Hashem al Am Yisrael. Maybe that would be the difference. If there are other Kahanim, you're going up there, you're saying Psuki, but in your heart, you're just saying Psuki. The Berachas Hashem is bestowed by the other Kohanim. And what you bear in mind is, for some reason, I don't know why, okay, you went up there. It's not a mitzvah, but it's not an aveda. Because all you're saying is psukim, and he definitely didn't say berachas mitzvah, he didn't say ashakachon. But if you're the only kohen, what are you doing up there? If you're the only kohen, you can't say, I'm just saying psukim. No, you're not just saying psukim. People are looking at you, and people believe they're receiving berachas Hashem. That would be the issue. Masav mechichin. You cannot say, no, I was just saying psukim. But if there are other kohanim, and for some reason you decided going up there, I don't know. Maybe you think it's amusing, but it's not an aveda. And I think fundamentally the difference, whether he's a yochid or he just goes up with the other kohanim, is in intent and the way we understand this phenomenon that the person is standing up there on the duchim and saying berachas kohanim. So if there are other kohanim, the tzibur gets the brachas. So what you're doing is einoi mala ve'einoi moiret. But if you are the only kohen, how could you say that? You can't say, I'm just saying brachas. People believe that you're Masel Berachas Hashem, and that would be an aved. That would be my understanding of that. Okay.